This time on Watchers of Tomorrow, Pulaski will need this to be canon later.
Hello everyone, welcome to Watchers of Tomorrow, the sci-fi review critique show where we're putting humanities back into science fiction. My name is Gep, and I am joined as always by my friend and co-host Dr. Isix.
Hi.
And this week we watched the feminist episode.
Kind of? Sort of, I guess?
There comes a time in the life cycle of every sci-fi show where they decide that they need to have their female characters do something. And usually they do this by incapacitating the men, generally with a hot alien.
It's a little weird. Now more modern shows tend to just have strong female characters from the get-go, but a little bit more older sci-fi like Star Trek the Animated Series, yeah.
Yeah, I know they did this. They did this here. I don't think they did it in Next Gen. They did exactly this plot in Voyager. Exactly. They did this in season 1 of Stargate SG-1.
Yep.
I know there's other ones. I'm trying to remember. There's just I think they might have done it. They might have done it in Buffy, but Buffy was already that.
Kind of, yeah. So I guess multiply air factor or something like that.
Though they could have done it gender switched in Buffy. That would have been interesting, but that would have been against their general ethic ethos thing. But I would have watched that. That would have been funny.
This is the show where the guys are kind of we're important now? Crap. What do we do?
So this is Star Trek the Animated Series, The Lorelei Signal.
Wait a moment. I think that's a reference to something sort of like the Sirens, but in Germany.
Yes. It is a reference to the German folk tale, The Legend of the Lorelei, which is just the Greek siren myth, but Germany.
I don't confuse this with the second season of Dice Funk. That's something else entirely.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was because it was an album name.
Oh yeah.
Wasn't everything in that season a reference to songs?
A good portion of it, yeah, because the placards and things like that.
Anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, go listen to Dice Funk because it's the best actual play D&D podcast.
Yes. Yeah, it's rather amazing. I've been a contributor to them for a while now, as far as Patreon stuff. Anyway,
sponsor us. We're getting Ouroboros of sponsorship happening. Anyway, this week's episode was written by Margaret Arman, who we've already seen several things she wrote in Star Trek Original Series, Game Masters of Triskelion, Paradise Syndrome, Cloudminders, many other contemporary shows, Rifleman, Fantasy Island, something called Ironside, which apparently is a detective show about a guy in a wheelchair.
Pod Squad?
Mm-hmm. So she's written a lot of stuff. Only one of those episodes was decent in any way, which was kind of a problem. But
yeah.
Cloudminders wasn't bad. So
yeah. Sometimes that's just how things roll. But she does take care of one more episode before we're done with the animated series.
So we got to see. Do we think this is going to skew more Cloudminders, where there was some actual commentary just handled a little bit inexpertly, or Paradise Syndrome, which is just no?
I guess I'd probably lean a little bit more Paradise Syndrome, yeah. Because the Game Master Triskelion is kind of the neutral one, but it's a little bit more on the line there. The ambergris element, I have no idea. I'm going to guess probably more Triskelion.
The hamburger element. The Hamburglar invades the Enterprise.
Well, there are space hamburgers that Star Trek sometimes has to go order, so yeah.
I know. I've been to that Quark's bar in Vegas before they closed it.
Ah, neat.
There we had hamburgers at the rings of Beta Z, which is just a stack of onion rings.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. The holy rings of Beta Z.
So do we have any guest stars this week?
No. In fact, we have such a dearth of guest stars and also so few female cast members that Michelle Barrett and Nicole Nichols wind up voicing like 9 characters.
Yep. As far as the ones in my notes that are noted, Nichelle Nichols is Uhura, Dara, Davison, the Enterprise Computer, and Michelle Barrett is Nurse Chapel and Thela, at the very least, and probably a couple others.
Yeah, you didn't even want to hire more women to guest star.
I'm just kind of throwing my hands up here.
Mm-hmm. All right, we may as well get going here. This thing we're doing that we've brought on ourselves. No one's making us do this. The Enterprise is en route to investigate an area of space where ships have mysteriously disappeared over the last 150 years. It seems like about time someone looked into this.
Yeah, apparently both Klingons and Romulans and I guess maybe Federation folk have vanished here. And so let's go into this area of space where people disappear randomly at exactly this point in time.
Yeah, apparently they've done some analyses in the last 150 years, and they discovered that one ship disappears precisely every 27.346 star years.
Well, okay then. Yeah, like how did they figure this out?
Also, like this show just puts fucking... Even original series didn't do this. Animated series is just putting star and space and antimatter on the front of words endlessly.
Yes. Maybe this is the time on the Enterprise where everyone was just a little bit more on drugs or something like that, and they're like, man, let's just call everything star stuff, man.
Yeah, that's the entire plot. They went to that acid planet in the last season, and they have just like, this is just the first person view. Everyone just is hallucinating that they're animated. It's like that one Christmas episode of Community.
Dude, you have like this black outline around you. Hey, you do as well. What's going on, man?
Let's just not mention it and move on. Yeah.
Okay.
So they've arrived a few seconds before the precise time that ships should be disappearing. As soon as the countdown ended, Uhura receives a strange subspace radio signal. Kirk describes it as more like music than a message, but if it is some weird like avant-garde Germany synth stuff.
That's some sort of down tempo, I think. Mm-hmm. Should I offer to sing at this point?
Do you think you could sing this thing? Go the...
No, I was just going to sing something else.
Oh, okay. Also, it's definitely a summons, except Uhura doesn't hear it as a summons at all. It's just random noise. But Kirk, of course, ignores this and says to set course for the planet of origin.
Go there. It calls to us.
Later, Uhura calls Nurse Chapel to the bridge, because apparently there's only 2 women on this ship, to observe the men.
It's like, so they're acting a little weird right now. What do you think about that?
They're acting strange in having what Spock calls audiovisual suggestion, which means that they're hallucinating white-haired women doing whatever they seem to think is sexy. Like Spock sees a woman playing a Vulcan message drum, and Kirk sees one holding a flower, which he seems... This happens to Kirk a lot. Every time he hallucinates a woman, she's holding a flower. He has some sort of weird thing here.
Well, some people, just like to have flowers involved in their fantasies, There's nothing wrong with that.
So the only ones who aren't seeing anything are Uhura and Chapel, even trying to get McCoy to the bridge to check out what's going on, but he's too busy with his own hallucinations to even answer.
Yeah, because for some reason they decided to pump this signal into the entirety of the ship.
I mean, you wouldn't want the random crew members to not know what's happening on the bridge.
Just turn on the audio for everybody, all right? Don't no matter about security or the fact that we're hallucinating, should prevent us from making sure everyone else is affected by this too.
If we were bothered by people hallucinating on this ship, we'd just be bothered all the time.
So about that animated notion there.
They soon arrive at a planet that appears out of nowhere, being all woobly on the view screen. No one mentions this or seems to care.
It's a ghost planet.
Spock sensors indicate that there was once a great civilization here, but there's not much life left. There's just some isolated life readings. Uhura finds unspecified errors in Spock's scans, but we don't know what they are, and it's never really brought up.
Well, maybe there's like some sort of death ray on the surface that's going to blow us up if we try to beam down, and that's how the ships are disappearing.
So Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and a new kid named Carver beam down to the planet to investigate. They find strange and wonderful gardens and alien architecture, which, like, again, the backgrounds of this show, like, if they had the kind of budget for this production design, like, they would have never taken original series off the air.
Just like all right, so we're on a planet. Holy smokes, this place is like fantastic.
And it's always such a freaking weird juxtaposition. They have these amazingly drawn, super creative backgrounds, and then just the jankiest outline, not even timed right animation anytime they move.
Yep.
It's so awkward.
So really, they should have made the entire series a slideshow.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have to worry about animation.
Kirk finds the buildings compelling, and Spock warns this may be an effect of their visual suggestions, and they should be very careful.
Okay, let's be careful then. Let's not rush in there and, we're just going to go over there.
Yeah, Kirk goes, okay, let's go. Doesn't seem dangerous to me.
You know my boss, Spock.
Inside, they encounter a bevy of tall, beautiful women with their white hair and blue eyes. I mean, they say that they're beautiful, but they are drawn identically to everyone else here, so...
I was sort of thinking, when I first saw them come on, I was like, wait a moment, these ladies look like the old, the original She-Ra sort of thing going on here, just kind of...
A little bit, yeah.
Pasted, yeah.
It's so nowhere near as good as She-Ra.
True, the animation's a little more bleh, but, it's like, okay, you're wearing this sort of, regal attire, and you're sort of the 70s, 80s sort of cartoon woman who has, some sort of influence over a situation.
So one woman introduces herself as Thala, the head female.
Hello. That's a interesting title you have there.
Yeah. Also considering there seem to be no men on this planet.
Well, they do mention that's like, yeah, there's men here. They're just in a different compound, far away. Don't worry about it.
I mean, she has to specify she's the head female. I did see a survey recently that said there's currently something like 62 genders, so maybe she's just specifying for clarity.
This is also the 70s, so they probably haven't thought that far ahead.
Also, every woman here sounds like Chapel and Uhura.
Yes.
As we mentioned before, they don't want to hire women. So Thala explains that they found the Enterprise using something called an optoad. Like, I feel like we're in Dune all of a sudden.
Yes. It's like an interocitor, but different.
So they have a big screen thing that they activate by humming at it, and it can show them anything they could ever want to ask.
So if you basically start singing Master Exploder, it activates. Okay, cool.
But enough explaining plot convenience. It's time to honor the men with a big feast.
Oh, well, cool. I'd like a big feast just for showing up.
After the feast, they all lay around watching women juggle crystals.
It's kind of a cool idea. Okay, this is like a crystal that's like a diamond shape that looks like if it hits your hand, it's going to like stab right through it. But I guess they're good at it, or something.
It's very like GameCube era polygon graphics.
Yes.
It looks actually, it's a Sims doodle. It's one of the Sims thingies. Just red. So there we go.
Wait a moment. They've landed on the planet of the Sims?
So she's juggling crystals, and then she throws one at Spock, who fails to catch it. She's like, heads up, and then nothing. Then he falls over. Everyone else also falls over. McCoy remarks it's probably the nectar they were drinking.
Oh man, we got drugged again.
Then they're dragged away to wake up in huge 4-poster beds, each one now looking old and having a circlet permanently attached to their head.
Well, this is awkward. Have we just been unconscious for like decades or something? What's going on?
So they head to the main room, where they confusedly and slowly ask to leave, but Thala orders them obstructed, and the women easily just pick them up and throw them.
Because apparently they've lost like all their strength.
Well, the women must just be strong, because they're still picking up and throwing around grown men.
Yep.
Which most people can't do. Just generally.
There's maybe some special explanation for some of this, kind of, that's implied, maybe.
Back on the ship, Chapel and Uhura have fed all the information they've collected about the planet and the signal into the computer. The analysis reveals that the signal coming from the planet is invigorating to human men, but also causes weakness and possibly even death with prolonged exposure.
So it both pumps you up and pumps you down, and at the same time? Okay, that's a little weird.
See, if we're going off like the last episode, which was very like, bad educational TV about digestion, this could be, they didn't, but they could have turned this into bad educational TV about drugs.
Yep.
Also sex, but mostly drugs. This could have been the sex, drugs, and rock and roll episode.
Well, there is music, so
So Uhura immediately orders security to send an all-woman team to block off the transporters because she is taking over the ship.
Wah, Uhura, captain of the Enterprise, destroyer of expectations, I guess?
They told me to patch in communications with Starfleet one too many times.
I'm taking over.
On the bridge, Scotty is distractedly singing for a very long time.
Yep. Kind of just singing there. There's like a Celtic or a Welsh tune, right?
Yeah, Welsh. So I just need to comment because this scene shows the planet and the Enterprise flying. It starts like almost off screen on the left and starts flying over towards the right side of the screen. And you think like this is going to last a couple seconds and then it just keeps going and it keeps going. But then by about the time you're like, oh, they're just going to have the ship fly all the way over to the other side of the screen while he's singing, it stops 3/4 of the way.
Yep. So what was the point of that?
Yep. They didn't even complete the ship moving across the screen. It's just I guess they just needed 30 seconds of filler to make the episode as long as they wanted.
I guess. And also, just having Enterprise slowly drift over, in front of the planet is really, really easy to animate, so.
Yep. So Uhura announces that she's taking command of the ship, and Scotty goes, oh, thank you.
Well, that's nice of you. I'm going to go take a nap over here later.
Yeah, at least he doesn't fight it. It's nice.
Yeah.
Back on the planet, all the women have left, which makes the men feel less weak and confused.
Wait a moment. Are they, like, not quite salt vampires or something like that?
There's some kind of vampires.
They're a combination of the salt vampires and the plot of the Deadly Years. I can barely speak right now for some reason.
So Spock notes that while their weapons and other equipment are gone, they still left McCoy with his med kit, evidently thinking that it wasn't anything important. Inside, there's a stimulant that they take to get their energy back and a medical device that they use to disrupt the magnetic locks on the door. They escape just as Thala enters to give chase.
Dun-dun, action scene! Ladies with super strength and chasing down old men.
The men manage to hide in what is apparently a large ornamental urn in the garden just before being found.
As you do.
So that's it. Now they have some breathing room. They note that the headbands tend to glow when the women are nearby, and Spock intuits immediately that this means they are polarized conductors that are transferring their life energy to the women when they are close by, causing rapid aging.
The science for that doesn't make any damn sense, but,
This happens a lot. Anytime that they want to do vampires in sci-fi, but they're not going to do vampires, they're taking your life energy, which we don't particularly understand.
It's just your energy, man. It's like new age stuff, but we don't understand it because we're writing sci-fi, and so we're just going to assume this is kind of how it works, and suddenly it's like the Force or something like that. I don't know.
As I've said many times, all technology in Star Trek runs on magic space rocks. We should stop worrying.
Yes.
So if they don't stop this in a few days with their rapid aging, they're going to die because they're aging about 10 years a day. As that since Spock is much longer lived than anyone else, he should have the strength to go back to the temple and find their communicators to call for help from the ship.
Plus, Spock has the Vulcan neck pinch. You can just sort of quietly go around and it's like, hey, can I get a hug? Oh, there you go.
No. He doesn't use his Spock sexiness to fight back. Spock returns to the empty temple and hums at the Optoad to activate it. I just love the name of this stupid thing. The Optoad.
Do the thing.
He asks where their equipment is, and the screen shows him the communicators are hidden under the main throne. He grabs one just as the women return, but he has just enough strength and time left to tell Uhura to send down an all-female team, which she figured out already.
Yes. So that was kind of a waste of time.
We'll get back to this. So this is the first of many. Uhura does this with herself and Chapel and 4 security officers beaming down to the temple. Thala demands that they leave and attacks, but apparently they've never seen phasers before, and they're quickly taken out by the security team.
Set phasers on stun. Uhura just starts gunning people down.
Yeah, they start shooting people, and all the women in this super technological advanced society is like, oh, didn't think of that. They have guns.
Suddenly we're having flashbacks to the third Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
So the crew searches the compound but fail to find any men until Spock senses they are there and psychically reaches out to Nurse Chapel because I guess they still have their special bond.
I guess that can work.
Chapel finds the hidden door to the sleeping chamber and also Spock.
Well, hey Spock, you've gotten old. Are they sucking out your life energies? You have to keep running into planets where people try to do that. Let's get out of here.
So outside, someone says, "It could be worse. At least it's not raining."
And then,
so the rain starts to slowly, well, not so slowly, but it starts to fill up the urn that they're hiding in. But now they're old and too weak to climb out of the urn, so they're going to drown now.
Yes, because there's just that much rain. That this urn that can fit, like 4 people in it is going to fill up instantaneously, effectively.
Chapel takes Spock back to sickbay, where he tells her that they can block the signal with the shields, which apparently they already tried, but he goes like, "Have you tried using more power?"
Yes, Spock, we have tried using more power, but I guess we could do even more power. Just keep humoring him, it'll be fine.
On the planet, Uhura threatens Thala by vaporizing an urn until Thala decides to use the Optoad to show them their planet's history. That's pressing right now. Apparently they came from a dying world to this one, so they're not native. They didn't know that this planet drains humanoid life force or something. The women developed a glandular condition that counteracts this, but has the nifty side effect of letting them control men and also feed off their life essence.
So you get some guys over here, and they you just sort of pull their life essence in, and you become super powerful and immortal and, I guess, forever beautiful or something like that. And the guy that they have on the display there, I think that's G.I. Joe.
Mm-hmm. So over time, they've occasionally needed to lure men here to top off their life energy, I guess about every 20 years or so. This makes them functionally immortal, but they're trapped in this horrible, undying place where they can't even have kids. Oh no.
That sucks, I guess.
Yep. That's the only thing they mention being wrong here, is they can't have children.
Well, I guess if, their descendants had the universal glandular stuff going on, independent of their gender, that would be okay, but otherwise you're just going to make more ladies.
Mm-hmm. It's fine. Parthenogenesis.
That's like that one species of a lizard or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm. Well, several species of lizard.
Anyway.
Uhura uses the Optoad to find the men who are just about to drown in the urn outside. She uses the security team to blow it up, releasing them just before they all die.
Hooray!
But back in sickbay, they're still all gonna die.
Well, I guess they got to die later.
There's nothing that they can do to reverse the rapid aging process until Kirk has an idea that they could use the transporters to rebuild their younger bodies. It's apparently super, super risky, but they don't have a choice. So I guess it has to be super risky, because why would you not just do this every 10 years or so?
Yes. It's like, well, I have my transporter pattern set up for to be 24 forever, so I'll just hop in and... that's a good regeneration.
This is, of course, drawn out for tension, but obviously it's going to work fine because they're not going to keep drawing wrinkles. How many more lines is that to draw?
Too many. It's too expensive. Can't do that.
So the men come out just as they were before. With just one last thing to do, Uhura returns to the planet to watch Thala destroy the transmitter that they were using to lure men in, and in exchange, the Federation's going to send an all-female ship to transport them to another habitable planet where apparently they'll return to being just like their ancestors in a few months, able to do all the stuff they did before, maybe even love and have a new lease on life, and all they had to do was give up their immortality. So, okay, fine.
Well, I guess if you want to get back to actually living life as opposed to just sort of being immortal forever, it's not a bad trade-off.
The end. I mean, I don't really care that they don't want to be immortal, but they don't like it here. They've never wanted to stay on this planet, and they never once just asked someone to help them leave.
Yeah, their motivation for their plan is a little confusing.
In 150 years of drawing ships here, they never went we hate it here.
It might be like a thing where they're really guilty about being vampires there, and so it's well, we'll only do this when we absolutely have to, and they're well, but if we do this, then the ship, we don't know how to run these ships, so we kill all these men in the process, and then we just have a ship in orbit that eventually falls out of orbit, and that's about it.
Wow, this... So,
yeah.
I get what they try to do with these episodes, but they always freaking, like, this one more than most has just fallen into every freaking horrible woman trope that you get in these shows.
And it's really unfortunate that that's so persistent, so overwhelming in the trends of TV, especially at the time, that it's just this pops up anytime someone tried to make a very pro woman episode. It's like, all right, well, I guess at least you tried.
Yeah, I guess. So like they did the thing, like apparently people even just loved this. Like even I found a quote like during the read through, Nichols was like, "Oh my god, I get to take over the ship, amazing."
Yeah, I recall that's I think this is like her favorite episode of at least the animated series.
But they just hit, so you start off with just the normal like woman temptress thing, where the only thing women have is their like ability to control men, and that gives them such an outsized amount of power.
Men are useless to the whims of these ladies who have so much. They're like the dark witches, but they're not wrinkly and green, with pointy hats. They're beautiful ladies that are going to manipulate you and fear them and stuff, I guess.
And this is very simultaneously used a lot. It's either a like reason that people cite for why there isn't any gender inequality. Women have just as much power because they can control men with their wiles and whatnot. Or it's like cited as a reason that women need to be controlled by men because they can use this power for evil, and actually they're usually the ones in charge, just behind the scenes and sneaky like.
And I'm going to call bull, bull on both of those sort of views there, because it's basically trying to, foist the totality of someone's own personal inability to control themselves onto other people.
And let's see, we also hit what I guess now we are calling Metroid Other M syndrome, which, if people aren't familiar with that game, Samus, who's like one of the original women of video games, spends that entire game having all of her equipment, abilities, and other things, but she's not allowed to use them until the guy says she can.
Yeah.
Which they keep doing. Like, Uhura is like, I'm taking over the ship. I see that this is something that's only affecting the men. I'm going to send a female security team to the transporter room. But I guess she's not allowed to think about sending down a rescue party until Spock goes, I figured it out. We need to send down women.
Well, I guess maybe Uhura was like, well, if I go before Spock calls back to let us know what's up that we already figured out, he's gonna, like, be really moody or something like that. And she just didn't want to put up with that.
Yeah, we don't want to bruise the men's egos.
It's like, he's gonna have a bruised ego, isn't he? Crap.
And then they do it again, which, like, that one, but the second time bugs me just on a writing level, because they could have made it make sense, they just didn't.
Yeah.
Because Spock's the science officer, so he goes, you can block this with the shields. And they say, we tried putting power to the shields. And he goes, put all the power to the shields, dumbass. Instead of, no, here's like a sciencey thing that I would know how to do as the science officer, which would make sense that I know how to do it and you, the communications officer, don't. No, it's just, but put in more power, though.
Yeah, do an inverse wave function of the song as it's coming in, and it'll cancel it out completely and totally, and you'll be good to go.
Which, like, the comms officer should be able to figure out how to cancel out a waveform, like a signal coming in, by playing the inverse waveform.
But I guess we're not doing that this week.
Nope.
So yeah, this one, it had some opportunities, but every single time it just kind of squanders them.
And then, of course, you have the big one where the main thing that all the women on the planet hate is that they can't have kids, thus making their lives unbearable, because that is the only need, function, or want of any woman, is to have children. And if you can't have children, your life is basically useless and over, and it's not even worth being immortal for.
People are different, have different priorities, different wants in their life. And there is a whole variety of what people's individual points to their existence ends up being that they will decide for themselves. And they're allowed not to choose that one,
Yeah, and what's really crummy is, like, this is something that still pops up a lot. Like, especially in more conservative-minded arguments, you see this with people when they're talking about women who have careers or are famous. They're like, oh my god, this celebrity is like, halfway through her 30s and she doesn't have kids yet. Must be so lonely and horrible. Or why isn't this one person married yet? They're running out of time. Oh my god, having children is the only thing. This is like something that we still hit.
Yeah.
And children is one of, in fact, the main ways that we use in Western society, and I'm sure others are just no Western society better, to exercise control over women, because it is something that women have to bear physically that takes a major toll on them. And then they are, in fact, expected unfairly to take on the majority of the work of child rearing. And in fact, we've set up our society in such a way that it is almost impossible for a man, even one who wants to evenly share in caring for their own children, because we've just set up the workplace dynamics and other things to unfavorably slant towards women doing more of the work.
There's a reason there's this thing called, people talk about the pay gap there, because women tend to be paid less than men, even when they're doing the exact same job. And that's a little ridiculous. And, if a guy can have a job that is able to support the family, a woman should be able to do that as well. But for a good number of jobs, that's not possible because of this, ridiculousness. And, even beyond that, the preferences on who gets hired, who gets promoted, who even gets allowed to do certain jobs. Yeah, it's all sorts of janky and, related to that horrible thing called gender roles there.
So yeah, this episode manages to hit just so many bad gender role things in a row. And it's really sad every time you watch an older show try to do but we put the women in charge narrative. Because they're
still hampered by this. Yeah. We're still having to do it through this particular filter. And so we can't break free and truly, express what that would look like.
And this particular plot point, which, as I've said, has popped up in a lot of different media, it simultaneously lets you do both things, because you're like, we're empowering the good women who usually can't be sex symbols on the show itself, because, we've had them be a couple times in original series, but Uhura and Nurse Chapel usually aren't specifically sex symbols in this show. And now, so the good women get to be the elevated heroes, while the bad women who are manipulating men with their feminine wilds and things are the villains of the piece. So you wind up with, the dutiful housewives who are just trying to take care of the men and save them from themselves, while this, horrible temptress comes in and tries to, take them away.
Goes to a lot of, I guess, paranoia about, your man's going to cheat on you if he spends any time with, a beautiful lady, because, I guess.
Well, there's also that idea that, women always could control men with their sexuality if they wanted to. You even get this later in Star Trek V with Uhura's sexy fan dance. So, she is fully capable of controlling men with her feminine wilds if she wants to. She just doesn't, because she's one of the good ones.
It's a little late.
Though I will say, we are so far removed from this being the level of representation that people want or get now. But yes. I know this show is, kind of obscure, but this is, a black woman in charge of the Enterprise.
Yep. Discovery was, not the first of the Star Trek franchise to have that sort of thing going on.
So it's good that they're trying.
Yes.
And I know I've criticized this a lot, and I from a modern perspective, the representation on this show is awful. From the perspective of the time, this was a massive deal to even have her on the ship. So giving her command is just a really good step up, given the standards of the time.
But given our present standards, it's could we have better? So, I guess we're kind of spoiled in that way, which is, I guess, a good thing,
This is something that we need to keep bringing up, though. It's good that we're a little more spoiled now, but like, just because there's an incredibly low bar, we shouldn't not celebrate passing the super low bar, but we shouldn't act like it's great that the bar is that low.
Yes. So it's, so points for getting over it, but, negative points to the greater society for having the bar be there at that point.
Yes.
So I guess we could, try to, slam Star Trek specifically and the creators of this particular episode, but really we should be blaming the greater society.
Yeah, basically we really should.
Yep. So I shake my fist.
Yeah, shake your fist at thee. And bite my thumb at you, 60s.
Well, 70s now, but
yeah. That's it. Just I don't know, the decades back then run together.
Basically, the trouble of the nuclear family of the 50s just kept on persisting, and it just won't die in some areas.
All right, this show was so simple. That's basically all I've got. Women is bad, except for the couple women who is good because they supports the men,
and that's kind of echoing the gender roles and perceptions of the time, and it's not great, but at least they tried. So.
And then like it's just indicative of the whole thing, because they had to pull just random women out of the woodwork for this because they only have 2 named characters.
Yes, and when you're too cheap for guest stars, well, especially women guest stars, it's like can you do a different voice somehow? Well, kind of, I guess.
Yeah, and like it just shows the lack of variety, because they do have James Doohan doing most of the other voices because they don't want to hire more people, but they have more of a male cast to draw from to do voices when they don't want to hire other people.
And most of the other voices James Doohan's doing are, either it's like, I'm just a more Americanized accent person, or I'm doing a high-pitched voice that's like a computer or alien space being, and you can't really tell my accent because I'm doing that. Ah!
So yeah, unless we can pull something else out of the woodwork, I'm done. This is all I had for this episode.
Yeah, I guess we could talk a little bit about gender roles and all that, but I don't really feel like doing that right at this point.
And we've done this before. Go listen to any of our other feminist rant episodes.
I guess I could try to talk about the history of gender roles, but there's a lot there, and I don't know. I just didn't feel super motivated to do all the research for this episode.
These episodes are not worth. I don't know. We'll do that later. We'll do that when we get to the weird gender flipped planet in next gen.
All right, let's do that then. Okay, so that's a plan, guys. Everybody.
All right. So for now, then, it's just time for the Galaxy's favorite game show.
Woo! Yeah. Hey everybody, welcome to the game show portion of the show. I hope you're feeling fantastic, because I know I am. Because I just had a good day. That's all I've had. Anywho, let's get on to the awards, because we got the various contestants who have been racking up all sorts of points. We are going to be handing out some prizes that are going to be associated with their successes, and we'll see how that goes out. So, the first prize to hand out is the Highlander prize, which goes to Thela and her fellow semi-mortal group of gals on the planet. What do they win, Gipwood?
Well, in keeping with Highlander, they should all get big swords, because apparently they're confused by guns. Don't have any other form of weaponry, which is, weird for when they're kidnapping people. Seems like gender equity is screwing them over.
Well, I guess I was kind of surprised they didn't have swords, because, is this a planet like Valkyries or something like that? I'm not... Oh, it's something else entirely. Okay. So, yeah, swords. Let's give them some swords. I endorse big swords.
Also, that can go into how they didn't use any actual technology because they were just singing at the computers that were already made and going off of the siren and thing that they were already doing, who use claws and other things to kill people instead of weapons. It's just tying into the whole men use technology and women are using some sort of brute force physical thing to kill, making them less human instead of the people who are using guns and weapons and swords, which is we consider more human because using tools makes you inherently more human and advanced. It's a whole thing.
Let's give them laser swords then.
Yeah, laser swords. Actually, it's before. I think it's still before They could do laser swords first. It's still before Star Wars.
Indeed it is. Our second prize is the Silent Death Prize, which goes to Kirk and the entirety of the Enterprise for intentionally going into a sector space that apparently vanishes ships and gets everyone killed. What do they win, Kipwin?
They just win early retirement. At this point, it's obvious that the Federation is just trying to kill them off.
I don't see the lie. Sorry, I'm just so amused by that. So they'll get to an early retirement and be able to go home, and, well, they've already kind of been aged up several times, and so I guess maybe they'll get 2 retirements then.
Yeah, Kirk has just caused too much trouble at this point.
Indeed. Well, trying to get the Enterprise crew killed. They'll be fine. Our final prize for today is the Boys Are Useless prize, which goes to Uhura and the rest of the women crew who have to contend with this being the reality they live in. But also more so during this particular episode. What do they win, Gepwin?
Okay, this is going to have to be a big fan project. The casting is going to be difficult because all the people involved in this have been aged out so long. But like, we need a spin-off show where every disposable female character gets to be on their own ship.
That'd be awesome.
Uhura gets to be captain. We get Chapel as first officer. Number 1 can be science officer, and then just everybody else who was like in there for 1 episode just to be the sexy woman just gets to be part of the bridge crew.
I would watch that. So let's get to it, everybody. Production team, activate. All right, that's all I got as far as prizes goes, Gepwin. Go ahead and take us away.
Yes, thank you all for joining us on this supposedly feminist edition of the Galaxy's favorite game show.
Woo, I guess.
All right, next one. I don't. No. Next week, I feel like they're just gonna ruin one of my this is one of the few pure nice things about this era of Star Trek, and I have just this bad feeling about it.
Are you upset because they made them pink?
No, just they were already perfect, and then I was worried they were going to mess it up when they did it in DS9, but that was such a great just homage episode. So I don't know what they're going to do here. The fact that no one ever mentions it worries me.
Well, I think part of the never mentioning it might come from the fact that few people have actually seen this series.
That could be. Also, the name doesn't bode well.
It doesn't roll off the tongue very well either.
No. So this episode is called More Tribbles, More Troubles.
Parallelism there going in the title, I guess.
Yeah, because you had The Trouble with Tribbles. This is More Tribbles, More Troubles.
More troubles.
You know, mo money, mo problems.
But are we going to be selling tribbles?
I don't know.
Yeah.
They might be. I guess they could. See, at least DS9 did a really good job with this. They at least had a pun. Mm-hmm. DS9 at least went the trials and tribulations. So this may as well be called Tribbles.
Yes. Now there is technically a 4th triple episode out there.
Oh my god. Is it in one of the fan shows?
Nope. It's one of the short treks.
Right.
It's called The Trouble with Edward.
Yeah, with what's-his-face in it from Bob's Burgers. I can't remember the name of.
Is that Edward, John Benjamin or something?
Yeah. I haven't seen it. I've seen people making fun of it.
Yeah, it's pretty silly. It's also very, very tongue-in-cheek.
You'd think so.
And also Edward should have been fired so many years ago.
I just should track that down. Anyway, this is going to feature Cyrano Jones again, the beloved Cyrano Jones. It's all his 3 lines. Yeah.
He's almost he's almost as beloved as Groppler Zorn, so we're in for a treat here.
So apparently the Klingons are trying to hunt down Cyrano Jones, so this may be the origins of the Klingon tribble extermination campaign that we have mentioned in DS9.
Yes. We hunted them down and destroyed them all.
We've also got Captain Koloth, who I'm willing to bet is voiced by James Doohan.
Yep. How did you know?
They do have They do have Stanley Adams coming back as Cyrano Jones, though. We got a guest star.
Oh, yeah. That's a little crazy.
Yeah, I guess Doohan's only allowed to do one impression, so they don't have to rehire an old actor per episode.
Oh, maybe that's why there's some maybe continuity snarls with this episode as far as the Deep Space Nine appearances of Koloth.
Maybe.
Because it wasn't really Koloth. It was Scotty pretending to be Koloth the entire time.
Oh, they got a tribble predator. That's interesting.
Yep.
That sounds fun. A gloomer. Huh. Okay, this might be interesting. So hopefully next week's episode is just some mindless fun, because we could use that about now.
Yeah. Let's get some mindless fun, Gepwin.
Okay, so next... Oh my god, I looked up a picture of the gloomer. Don't do that. Oof. Okay, next week we're going to talk about whatever this monstrosity is on Watchers of Tomorrow.
Next time on Watchers of Tomorrow... the new pink tribble for you and me, for everyone! You have been listening to Watchers of Tomorrow, a podcast on science fiction media. Find and follow Watchers of Tomorrow on Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Spreader, Digital Podcast, and perhaps many more to come. If you enjoy our podcast, make sure to subscribe for more. And where possible, make sure to rate your experience or leave us a review. You may find Gepwin on youtube.com/Gepwin and Twitter @Gepwin. You may find me, Dr. Isix, on youtube.com/Dr. Isix and Twitter @IsixLP. Music is Waveform and Mori's Principle, both by DRKRN. You can also check out the Watchers of Tomorrow Discord channel. Make sure to share the experience with your friends, family, enemies, and alien overlords. If you feel you are suffering from transporter syndrome, please be aware that the next time you step off the transporter, that you, that is now, no longer exists.